Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to DABCC Radio. As always, we have an amazing show for you, and we truly do. Today, we're going to learn all about VMware's Virtual Volumes from one of my favorite and one of the oldest storage companies in the virtualization cloud, VMware Citrix world, a company called DataCore that just makes a phenomenal solution. We're going to learn why it's a phenomenal solution. We're going to learn about how that complements what VMware is doing with data or virtual volumes. And we're going to do all that and much more. And we have a gentleman, Todd, with us, Todd Mace, and he is one of the evangelists over at DataCore, an old Microsoft trainer, and he educates is what he does. He educated me on this podcast, and I'm recording the intro after the podcast, so I know what it's like, and it's a good one, and I think you guys will really like it. So with no further ado, let's jump into my interview with Todd Mace from DataCore Software. Okay, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'm quite looking forward to it. It's been a while. I'm looking forward to having you. It's been a while since I've had DataCore on. I mean, a few years at least, and what a shame. So you guys are one of my favorites. Yeah, neat technology you make. So before I get ahead of myself, let's get into this. As always, my first question is, who are you and what do you do over at DataCore?
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. I'm very happy to be here. My name's Todd Mace. I'm a tech evangelist for DataCore. Actually, I'm fairly new at DataCore. I've been there about 5 months, but enjoying every minute of it. I have the unique responsibility and the privilege to actually integrate with internal engineering and our sales folks and marketing folks to not only educate what we do as a company, technology-wise, but also have the unique privilege to help our internal team understand the nuances in the field and some of the things and technologies that we could be working on for the future. So I love communicating. I love educating and training, kind of a little bit of my background. I've been a Microsoft certified trainer for many years, since I guess 1999. I'm an MCSE, VMware vExpert, vCP, a person that really likes to engaging the customers and understanding their problems and hopefully coming up with a good solution for them.
You know, we were talking before the show, and you have the best job. You're an evangelist. And,
yes.
There's no better job than that, right? You've done everything. MCTs are cool also. The trainers, that's a blast.
Yes. I enjoy that part of it, and I guess what's really unique about me is I have my education background is actually not in technology, believe it or not, and I was trained as a minister, a pastor.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, something unique about me. So, part of my career in my early days was speaking in large, churches and so forth. Went through those courses and classes, and of course, I always had a hobby in technology, and so I kind of pursued that after my education. But I didn't realize at the time that it led me to do what I do today and be able to communicate my passion, which is all the different innovations that we have in storage and virtualization.
Yeah. Oh, that's so neat. That's so neat. I wish I would have known that. We would have chatted about that. And
yeah, that's true.
That's very interesting. I don't think I've ever had a pastor on the podcast before. That's cool. That's really, really neat. So that definitely that's group speaking and to the extreme. I think that's
Yes,
awesome.
it's kind of a funny thing. People that know me kid me about being a tech evangelist,
Yeah,
as it's it's a dual role in that sense.
that's exactly right. I actually have a old friend of mine, Sean Donahue, who's one of the best trainers I've ever had in my entire life. This guy is phenomenal. He works over at Citrix now. He's worked at Microsoft, and actually met him in the Softricity days. And I took his class. They brought me up to teach me about Softricity, and he taught the class like it was church. And he actually, believe it or not, actually had bought a church and renovated it into his house. It was an old church that they changed into homes, and so he would it's we're going to read from the good book, and the good book was the training manual, right? And then he get done as everyone, you agree, amen. And I tell you, I learned more from that guy than I've learned from any trainer in my entire life.
Wow.
He was phenomenal, and those out there listening know who Sean Donahue is. They're saying, yeah, he is phenomenal, and listening to him is a true pleasure. True pleasure. I listened to him. I could listen to the guy read the phone book because he would, after every line, is amen. We all say it.
Yep.
Yeah. That's great. So DataCore Software. For those who might not be familiar, can you give us like the 40,000 foot view? What are you guys trying to accomplish over there?
Sure. DataCore's been around for 18 years. I think we just had our 18th birthday.
Wow.
Recently. So it's been around a while. They were kind of the first company to come out with storage virtualization, and they were very successful with it. And they continue to be successful with many customers joining for a product what we call SANsymphony. There's more in the pipeline. I'll tell you about in a few moments, but that legacy of 18 years has led to over 10,000 customers around the world. We have over 30,000 installations, and our customer satisfaction rate is just phenomenal at 92%. And part of the reason is that we have basically a full stack of storage services that we've built up over the years. We're the only, we're a very few in the market that we can do synchronous mirroring between two locations for storage for high availability. Of course, we have the standard, data services that anybody else has in storage, snapshots, backups, auto tiering. But we also do some other things like caching, storage pooling. We have, we're the first to do thin provisioning as an example. And of course, we have the common things like dedupe and compression. But what really makes us unique is that DataCore started in the storage virtualization, like I said, basically decoupling the data services from the storage layer to give that flexibility to manage your entire storage environment. And you basically have operational efficiency around managing your storage without, no matter what the vendor is. So we have a full suite of things we could do. We can be, we have a software that can become a virtual SAN. We have hyper-converged scenarios. We have an example where you could actually use us as the actual storage box itself and not have to buy a separate SAN. So many different ways to deploy our software.
Yeah, you got it. You guys are you really do about everything, or the solution allows you to have that flexibility to do about everything. In many ways, you were software defined, or not in many ways. You were software defined before there was software defined. You were hyper-convergence before there was hyper-convergence, right?
Yes. So
just the nature of what those guys created.
Yeah, and I think that's just the benefit of doing software. I mean, you can innovate a little quicker. You're not tied to hardware per se. You can kind of move with the market. So that gives us that flexibility to do those things.
Well, you mentioned your software. Can you describe the solution a bit so someone understands, in the software, in the storage world, there's so many different ways of doing storage solutions, right? You have appliances, you have software, you have, boxes, virtual appliance. Can you explain the DataCore solution to us, if that makes sense?
Our software is extremely flexible. It can be deployed as appliance. We have relationships with Huawei. We have relationships with Lenovo, Dell, and onwards. So it can be deployed as an appliance. It can be deployed, like I said earlier, as in your existing SAN environment without disruption or rip and replace per se. We're just a Windows application that can be installed on a Windows operating system that gives us the flexibility to run as a hyper-converged with your existing environment, or go with one of our partners, and they can set you up. So extremely flexible. I mean, it's a download that you do as long as you have Windows running. That's the only requirement.
That's cool. So you guys actually run on top of Windows, correct?
That's correct. Yep, that is correct.
Cool. That's an interesting solution. And I remember asking you guys this years ago, but can you maybe talk a bit about, or if why did they choose Windows? If you think about anything, the last thing you would imagine today's world is sticking it on top of Windows, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I asked that question as well upon joining.
Yeah, why not Linux?
DataCore. Yeah, why not Linux? And the funny thing is that DataCore actually started in the Unix world, and their software was on Linux, Unix back in the day. And then they made a strategic decision to run on Windows. And the reason that the founders decided to do that was that Windows gave them the flexibility to keep current with the latest and greatest is. No longer do you have to worry about driver issues. No longer, as long as Windows supports drivers, which, pretty much when it comes to any new hardware that's out there, if it's not supported on a Microsoft platform, then it could be problematic. So it gave them the flexibility to integrate with a Windows kernel, so that we didn't have to rewrite our software at every new generation of new hardware that comes out. So that was one big benefit. The other big benefit was the fact of how storage I/O is processed in Windows. It's, believe it or not, I didn't know this, but before joining DataCore, but believe it or not, Windows actually has a very robust I/O stack, and it provides very low latency to your applications, much lower than some of the other operating systems out there. So that gave the benefit of processing using CPU and the number of cores that a box has to process I/O much more efficiently. And so that efficiency is what DataCore in the early days decided that, hey, we like this model and we're going to stick to this model because it gives us best of breed for the future. And it provides that low latency and performance that we want to head towards. And even today, with our SPC1 numbers and our high performance that we're getting out of our software, it's basically proven that.
Yeah, that's such an interesting answer, because I remember, the first time I was introduced to DataCore and came out and met your CTO and all the guys and everything, and I was blown away. As you run on Windows, why would you want to run on Windows? And he gave me the same answer, and it blew me away. But it's totally true. Windows is a great platform for running storage. Yeah, everything underneath is perfect, and in return, you guys can get the performance through that you can't get in other areas, or at least a heck of a lot easier and more flexible for the end user or the customer. Yeah,
half the issues with today's market when storage are, in my opinion, related to compatibility issues, new updates or drivers related to it. A lot of that goes away if you support Windows, because a lot of that's already been worked out and certified under the Microsoft framework. Yeah. So we don't have to deal with those types of things. Now, it doesn't say that there's no issues at all. Every vendor has issues, but it does take a majority of those away for us.
That's really awesome. It's a mind-blowing answer. Windows. You would never think that, but
yes.
It's totally true.
Yes, that's correct.
So, and you guys also work with with existing solutions, like, for example, VMware's Virtual Volumes, right? So I want to talk a bit about that. Can you provide some background on VMware's Virtual Volumes, VVols, then its benefits, and why this is important development for for the industry and the value that it brings to the customers, and then in return DataCore.
Sure. So let me back up a little bit. Is that DataCore supports VMware as a hypervisor, Microsoft's Hyper-V, even KVM and some of the Linux distros. So we're not tied to a particular operating system as far as use in your environment. But when it comes to VMware and vSphere, kind of a little bit of my background, I was very excited upon joining DataCore the support of virtual volumes, because in my opinion, and I'm sure someone would agree, virtual volumes is a technology that came out of VMware. In my opinion, is one of the best things in recent years coming out of VMware as a technology, because it's revolutionary in how you manage your storage and the flexibility that provides the virtual admin and how you manage your virtual machines. And so DataCore, being software like we talked about, was immediately able to support this framework from VMware. And the interesting part of this, I actually worked with in a previous job with the founder or the creator of Virtual Volumes. And so it was nice to actually see it come out of VMware and actually be able to use it and see what the capability was, because it's an exceptional piece of technology that many storage vendors are starting to obtain and put in their portfolio. And I'm proud to actually say that DataCore is the first software that's been certified from VMware to support virtual volumes. There's hardware vendors out there, storage vendors that say that actually support virtual volumes, but we're the first software vendor to support virtual volumes and be certified. So that gives us the flexibility that we'll talk about of what we call universal virtual volumes. But to back up a little bit to your question, what is virtual volumes, for those that are listening or not really sure or haven't had exposure to it? So you can think of virtual volumes as a kind of a management framework for external storage. It gives you that control or finer grainer control to manage your virtual machines for policies. Maybe you want to have a virtual machine just with, say, dedupe or compression, or maybe on a faster disk like an SSD. So now you can actually provision and set up your virtual machines based on policies, and the storage behind it that supports virtual volumes can adhere to those policies that you set. So the benefits are you get this operation efficiency and flexibility of choice, no longer having to worry about LUNs underneath and LUN management and what type of capabilities that your storage vendors have exposed to you. So the benefits are huge when virtual volumes. Like I said, you get VM policy automation. You get the ability to now set up your virtual machines based on, say, maybe more logical constraints instead of physical constraints. So there's no more manual work of assigning a VM to a LUN, as an example. And you don't also have to over-provision your storage box for additional resources. Now you can align the resources to the appropriate application demands. So just a subset of some of the benefits you have.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So as you mentioned, many administrators are craving that fine grain control, right? That VVols promises that it supports. How does DataCore enable that? Can you?
Sure.
I leave it at that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So virtual volumes is great in itself in the framework, and that framework, there's an API and so forth that different vendors can utilize and support on their platform. And so DataCore was able to do that in what we call universal VVols, because we're the only software vendor that can actually take this framework and spread it across all your storage devices. So no longer are you tied to a particular storage box. So if you have EMC, or you have NetApp, or you have HP or Dell, it doesn't matter. because now we'll support all of those storage boxes, even legacy boxes, for virtual volumes. So to back up a little bit, for a storage vendor to support virtual volumes, they have to do one or two things. They have to, change their firmware. Maybe there's an upgrade involved, or maybe the storage vendor decides not to even support virtual volumes until their next maybe new release of hardware. So a lot of customers out there that have purchased hardware today that do not have virtual volume support are kind of stuck unless they either do a disruptive upgrade of their hardware platform, or they just rip and replace. And that can be costly and disruptive to the whole environment just to get virtual volumes. So universal VVols, as we call it, provides that capability to manage all your storage under one management control plane. So you could think of this as kind of the management, I hate to say it, but the kind of the one piece of software that you go into single pane of glass to manage all your storage resources. So no longer do you have to go to different environments to set up your management and your policies and thin provisioning or your resources like SSD or flash or whatever the case may be. You can use all that technology, and it can be surfaced up to our platform that DataCore provides under the virtual volume construct. So that gives us the universal control plane where you can, from your vSphere web client or to go and actually provision virtual machines based on just policies. And you no longer have to worry about well, do I need to have that virtual machine provision on a NetApp? Do I need to have that on an IBM or EMC? You don't have to worry about those types of decisions now, or where the LUNs are, or how much space do I have. Storage policies in the web client will be able to determine, okay, well, the requirements for this virtual machine are XXX, and it will automatically provision on the appropriate storage.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, and by the way, you don't have to apologize for being a universal pane of glass. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, what I understand then is I have the VMware side of things, right? I have my existing storage out there, which I've spent way too much money for. And in order to get the value, if they don't support it, or it's not the way I want, or if plus I want all these other benefits that you guys bring. But forget about all the other benefits. I can slap in DataCore in between that, get the single pane of glass, get all the benefits that I'm not talking about yet, and in an interface with VVols and your existing storage just by slapping this in the middle?
Yeah, basically, that's in a nutshell. And you don't, that's an example where you have existing storage. But if you don't have existing storage and you want to support virtual volumes, you can use DataCore as the SAN.
Yeah.
So, and it'll support virtual volumes in of itself. So that's another way to deploy our software on a hardware using a Lenovo appliance as an example. But as long as we support Fiber Channel and iSCSI, so as long as your environment is a Fiber Channel and iSCSI environment, we can support VVol, and no matter what hardware. So if it doesn't, maybe if it's storage 5 years ago that before VVols was even thought of, we can support it, and it gives you the flexibility to use all the great things that DataCore has, like caching, read and write caching, all the high availability that we offer, synchronous mirroring, right out of the box through the VVol constraint.
Well, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Can you tell me about DataCore's certification for VVols and what this means to your customers? And are there other software vendors that are certified for VVols today?
Yeah, currently right now we're the only certified software vendor to support VVols. And it's quite a lengthy process that DataCore went through late last year. And basically there's a recognition from VMware that we've gone through the proper API and framework to certify ourselves that it will work with VVols and We're not doing anything wild and crazy beyond what VMware would recommend. And so that gives the customer the satisfaction that, hey, not only VMware recognizes us as a certified vendor, but we also DataCore believes in the innovation that VMware has put out for storage vendors, and we're following their best practices. So we could do much more without saying with VVols, but we also want to stay within the framework that VMware outlined. So, for example, when the next version of VVols is released from VMware, we'll be able to support it right away without having any type of constraints on our side of waiting for the customer.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So you keep talking about this universal VVols, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a bit more about what that is and some of the benefits of that approach?
Yeah. So, there's let me back up a little bit in understanding VVols. There's several components that make up VVols. There's a VASA provider, and you can think of this as the management control plane that talks between vSphere and storage. And the VASA provider is a piece of software that can be installed, in our case, as an appliance or as a virtual machine. Probably is the best example that provides that control and that management connection between storage and a vSphere. So a lot of focus has been, okay, well, the VASA provider, if it goes away or if it crashes, then we basically lose our VVol connections to our storage, and we're not able to provision any new virtual machines. So bad things can happen if your VASA provider goes away because it's your control plane. So what DataCore can do, because we're just software, we can have as many VASA providers as you want. And you can have, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. And now we can work with just one, but if you want high availability, have 2 or more VASA providers spread across your environment and use maybe high availability in the VMware environment to provide that functionality. So if a VASA provider virtual machine happens to disappear for whatever reason, you have another instance of that virtual machine running, so that you don't lose the control plane between storage and your vSphere environment. So a lot of other implementations of VVols only have one VASA provider. So that's something to keep in mind if your hardware supports VVols. The question you to ask your storage vendor is how do they keep up their VASA provider from failing, and is there any redundancy or high availability with that? So for us being software, that can be deployed anywhere. It's not tied to a piece of hardware. So you get this high availability for VVols by implementing what we call universal VVols. That's one example. The other example is this idea of a protocol endpoint, and you can think of a protocol endpoint as kind of like the connection at the storage level. So you can have one or many protocol endpoints that connect to your storage containers, which is a logical representation of your raw storage. So an example would be you could have one protocol endpoint assigned to one storage container that has X amount of storage, maybe some SSD, maybe some spinning disk. And that has one protocol endpoint that connects back up to your SCSI layer at the vSphere. So what a lot of people worry about is what happens if the protocol endpoint goes away. Well, again, that's your data connection now, not the control plane. Now that's your data connection. Well, bad things could happen there as well because you lose that connection with storage. There goes your virtual machines, and bad things can happen. Like I said, so being software, we're, as far as I know, we're the only virtual volume vendor out there that can actually support many protocol endpoints, up to 16,000 virtual volumes per protocol endpoint. So we can have a lot of protocol endpoints, so that if one goes away, we have another one to go to.
Very interesting. I love it. Absolutely. That's the value of software, really, right?
Yes, it really is. I mean, you no longer have to develop toward a specific type of hardware anymore. Now, as long as you are able to be inflexible enough to actually support all these different types of innovations that come out, you can provide a customer a richer experience and a faster experience with the latest and greatest. And again, that goes back to the decision that the founders did in the early days to support Windows. Supporting Windows gave them that flexibility to do these types of things.
That's just so amazing to me. It sounds so counterintuitive, but it's not. It's well, the software piece doesn't. The Windows piece is what always blows my mind.
Yes, it is surprising to a lot of people because that's Linux is kind of what everybody's developing against, but a common problem. I've worked with a lot of different vendors. A common problem with a Linux construct is that there's a lot of compatibility that you have to worry about.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of distros out there that maybe have different constraints or compatibility. So having one common platform like Windows gives you the ability to at least program against that.
Yeah, and every vendor in the world gets supported and certified on Windows. Otherwise, they're nobody.
Exactly.
So it just works. It's just phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So I wanted to ask you about what kind of storage you guys support, but I think you've answered that in many ways. You support any type of storage. It just doesn't matter because of your methodology, because it's software, because it runs on Windows, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like I said, as long as your storage is iSCSI and fiber channel based, we'll support it in our environment. And again, like I said, if you want to use DataCore for your storage in of itself, you can use any Windows box or any hardware box, install Windows on it, and you already have a SAN ready to go, a high performing SAN, that is.
Yeah.
With all the common data services, we support multi-writer support, dedupe. Like I said, synchronous mirroring. We have replication support. We support snapshot, copy on write.
Yeah.
And we have read and write caching. So, and then our newest stuff that, if you've been following DataCore, is parallel I/O. So we're able to harness a lot of the CPU cores that are underutilized on your server platform and use that for accelerating your I/O for storage.
Yeah, the parallel I/O stuff you guys are doing is phenomenal, and really, DataCore came out of parallel processing, right? Parallel computing.
Yeah, it did, and that's where the founders and the engineers came from in those days, and so they were able to actually harness that and bring it up to a market where it's kind of most people are forgotten about. But now that you have all these cores available to you, why not use it for I/O processing? And we've been religious about showing our numbers and trying to use a common benchmark that people recognize, SPC1 benchmark, and to kind of show what is possible with using just software and standard hardware, nothing out of the ordinary, something you can buy off the shelf, and showing some numbers that just will blow you away. It's really surprising, to be honest.
Yeah, it's in many ways we're underselling what you guys provide. You provide almost, I won't say everything because that's such a bold word, right? But I mean, the performance is stellar. The support is for storage and types of configurations and types of feature functions benefits is across the board, right? And it's not a new technology. DataCore has been around for 18 years, like you mentioned, right? So
exactly,
it's a very mature platform that just continues to plug into the new technologies like virtual volumes that people are coming out with to give you that single pane of glass. I'm now evangelizing. You've turned me.
Hey, that's part of being a tech evangelist, is make a lot of evangelists.
I love it. Listen to me. You're like, just go, Doug, go. So I love it. Absolutely. I'm a fan of what you guys do. I've played with it. I've installed it in my labs and over the years, and it's just so darn easy. But yet you start diving into it, it's like, wow, I can do this. Wow, I can do this. Oh my, I can do this. I don't even have this, but I would love to try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it's funny because customers that purchase DataCore, they'll get it installed. They'll purchase it for one use case, and they'll call us back and say, "Hey, we want to use the software for this," and we tell them, "Oh, well, it can already do that." So, so they come back as, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize that," and they go back and they're a happy customer because they didn't have to purchase something new. The capability was already there. They may not have needed it in when they first purchased it, but they need it now. And we've thought about what a customer would want now and in the future. I mean, VVols is probably a perfect example of that. There's not many people using VVols today because it is kind of the new framework going forward for storage. So you can take advantage of it today without having to re-architect, buy new storage, install new firmware for your storage. You can do it today just with a software download, and it's supported by us and certified by VMware.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you about legacy storage and things, and I think I know the answer to this because you've done such a great job explaining it to me. But some legacy storage and arrays are not yet slotted to receive virtual volume support, right?
Mm-hmm.
In these cases, can customers benefit from DataCore's solution?
Yeah,
and the answer
absolutely.
is absolutely, right?
Absolutely. I mean, for example, in a lab environment, if you're using like a Synology or some type of cheap NAS device for your lab environment, you could actually play with our software, and we'll support virtual volumes on a hardware storage box that probably will never see virtual volume support because it's more of a enterprise function, and you can test it out in your lab today. So that gives you one example of using kind of a legacy or a NAS type of system for virtual volumes if you just kind of want to play with it and see what it can do, because it doesn't matter what the storage is underneath. We basically decouple all that data services and functionality, and now your storage is now much more robust. And so a side effect to that, a good side effect to that, is you can now stick DataCore in front of a cheap and deep storage appliance, or maybe local disk in the same box that DataCore is running. So it's more like a virtual SAN, and get all the functionality that you would want in a expensive, large enterprise storage vendor, and get exceptional performance. And when I say exceptional performance, get numbers like you're seeing in, a million plus IOPS at microsecond latency. So you get these numbers that normally, if you went out and bought from a storage vendor, maybe it'll cost you $5 million or $1 million, depending on what you're purchasing. Now you can get it for just under $100,000. Or in a smaller environment, just a few $1,000s to have the same functionality that maybe it was out of your budget or out of your reach.
Yeah.
So we become more cost effective being software, and not have to be deployed to expensive hardware, basically.
Because it's software. DataCore, we rock because it's software.
Yeah, just because it's software.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So the founders were not stupid people.
No.
They knew what they were doing. Well, they were rocket scientists, basically. As close to it as you can get. Parallel I/O. Oh, I remember all those conversations. Brilliant people. So you keep mentioning trying it out. We can download this. It's software. We can download evals. We can play it in our labs. You guys also have like free versions too. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. We have a free version that you can kind of use in your home lab environment to try it out. We have a 30-day trial version. And we also even have like kind of a live demo on our website as well. You can just kind of play with that without installing anything. So, a few ways to kind of try it out and see what it can do for you. Run it in your home lab, kind of test it out, and see what it can do for you in your production environment.
Awesome. And the last thing that I have on my list of things I wanted to ask you about was policy based management.
Mm-hmm.
So, what data services do you guys, DataCore, offer in context of virtual volumes around policy management and things of that nature?
Yeah, so we support multi-writer support, dedupe, synchronous mirroring. We have snapshot support, read and write caching. All can be exposed through the storage policy-based management. And we actually can do more than that. But again, like I said, we're trying to stay within the framework of the certification with VMware. But when the next version does come out, we'll be right there ready to go to support it. So there's much more that I can't talk about with what we can do with virtual volumes, but we're already there as far as what's next.
That's awesome. Todd, I've really loved this. I started off the podcast telling you about how much I love doing these podcasts because I learned so much, and I've learned a lot. I'm not a storage guy by training. I'm an app server guy. And I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a lot. I appreciate your time today. I have a couple more questions, and those are my last two questions I always ask. And so let's jump to the last one, or the first one of the last two, and that is competition. There's a lot of guys out there, that are in the storage world doing things maybe similar. They explain it. Why should I care about what DataCore is doing versus everybody else?
Yeah, no, great question. So, it kind of goes back to a couple things. We have a legacy of 18 years, and so it's kind of a hardened and true, 10,000 customers or over 10,000 customers have kind of proven our technology over the years. And that's given us the ability through our software to support all different generations of functionality in the storage world. Is much more to come that we've been working on. We've had time to innovate further, even beyond what we've already done. And so it gives customers that satisfaction and a safety net to believe that there's a real organization behind it. We're not a startup, and we're not testing our solution on customers. We have our satisfaction rate is off the charts when it comes to production workloads. And other thing I would say to that is our scalability is huge. All the way from one node to hundreds to thousands of nodes are deployed around the world. So we have huge environments all the way down to a small environment. So we're not pigeonholed to a certain size, and that gives again the customer the flexibility to choose what is right for them in their environment.
Perfect. And then my last question, and you mentioned this, and you don't have to answer it, but I ask it nonetheless, and that is the future. What can we expect from you guys in the future? Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, I can't spell out specifics, but I can tell you that look for more around the parallel I/O technology. There's much more to come in that area very, very soon. You'll see performance numbers coming out from us that will probably make people's jaw drop, and unbelievable numbers that are capable just from a software solution. So look for things around that. There's also much more coming out later this year around our current technology that will even give customers more functionality than they already have. So those are probably the two things that I would look out for what's coming in the future.
That's great. I've always said performance and flexibility is what I think of when I think of DataCore.
Yes, yeah, that's probably two good words to attribute to DataCore.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are as flexible as they come because you're software.
Mm-hmm.
We keep saying, and then the performance is phenomenal.
Right,
phenomenal. So, Todd, I really appreciate your time today. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I will go ahead and give you the last word, and we'll call this a podcast. Sound fair?
Sound fair. I appreciate it, Doug. This has been great. I've enjoyed my time, and hopefully it was helpful to those that are listening, and for you, Doug, as well. It's been great. I enjoyed my time. Thank you.
Well, hey, thank you. One more question. If someone wants to learn more, what do they need to do? Or what
Sure.
can they do?
You can follow me on Twitter at MCTodd. I also have a blog that I frequent. It's toddmace.io, toddmace.io. So check me out and connect with me. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to follow you. I don't know if I am following you. If not, I'm going to follow you right now.
Awesome.
And I'm going to check out your blog, too. I'm going to learn about storage.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Todd. You take care.
All right. We'll see you.
Okay, that concludes another successful episode of DABCC Radio. As always, what do I want to do? If you're a longtime listener, you know I want to thank my guests. You know, the most important thing, right? Thanking your guests. Actually, the most important thing is thanking each and every one of you. But I'll get to that. We save you for last, the best for last, on DABCC Radio. But I want to thank Todd. Really great time chatting with him. And as I mentioned, I'm not a storage guy. I'm an app dev guy, and by training, right? By what I did as an engineer was app development, server Citrix work, right? And so storage is something I know a little bit about, or enough to be extremely dangerous. And he educated me today. I love it. I love it. So that's 2 podcasts in a row that are really, really informative. They're all informative, but 2 that I look at and say, wow, I just learned a lot. Good old Simon and good old Todd. So Todd is elevated to the level of Simon Crosby. That's a pretty good place to be, if you ask me. On that note, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for making DABCC a success. And please check out www.dabcc.com, as it's a completely ground-up rewrite. And I think you guys will really like it. It is beautiful. It is fast. It is easy to use to find content really fast. And it is powerful because you can find that content really fast. I built an engine that's sort of like what Amazon uses, to where checkbox driven, where you can go in and say, I want to find all the information about storage from vendors DataCore and Citrix and VMware, and relating to servers or applications or whatever tag. And click those 3, click submit, boom. Takes a couple seconds to crunch that data, and it comes back with a list of the articles. So you can go through 45,000 pieces of content and bring it down to a handful or what's appropriate within seconds. It's that powerful. It's that cool. So definitely check that out. I think you guys will really like it. Let me know what you think. I was just at Synergy and I'm quite proud. Had a lot of people say, I love the new site. I love the new site. I love the new site. About time. I love the new site. The guy that said about time, I was like, oh, you're so correct. It is about time. So, what do I say? But thanks to each and every one of you guys. If you like the show, please tell a friend. And on that note, thank you for listening to DABCC Radio.
Can you say DABCC?
DABC.
Say it again, DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again, DABCC?
DABC.
How about DABCC?
DABC.
DABCC.
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 DABCC.